Jeff talked me into coming out here and giving a little talk, and when I was speaking with him, I said, I really don't know if I have anything to say for you, and we were talking about some incidences and things that in the workplace, and he said, oh, for sure, you have to come out here and speak with our group. So we'll take it from there. A little bit about myself. I graduated from the U of I in 1962 with a BS in mechanical engineering. My first job out of school was with the Cwik Corporation, and I was in machine design, and it was developing equipment, and most of the equipment that I did was for the steel mills. And I got into my head that what I really wanted to do was to manufacture things. I wanted to make a product, and so I looked at changing my position, and I started to work as a product engineer with a small bearing company in the city. It's called Aetna Bearing Company, and I started off as a product engineer, and this is where I started getting my background in manufacturing, punch presses, screw machines, things of this nature. I developed into quality control at that point in time. I ended up with in charge of the engineering department and the quality control. And at the same time I was doing this, I was doing my work at DePaul for my master's in business administration. And I started reading a series of books that had a pretty big effect on me, and it was called The Human Side of Enterprise. And what it was is using people in the manufacturing equation, and what a valuable resource it was. And it started kind of dictating the way I approached my various positions. I'm going to talk about a couple of instances where I use this approach, and the first one was at Aetna. I developed a clutch throwout bearing, and most people don't know what a clutch throwout bearing is now. We don't have those kind of things anymore, but we were buying a carrier, and we manufactured the bearing and put the two of them together. So half of the product was purchased, and so what I did is I developed a way that we could manufacture this carrier internally. But what it required was doing something out of the ordinary. We had to, I'm going to mention screw machine. A screw machine is not for making screws. What it is, it's a multiple spindle machine for machining parts, so that you could, they're relatively large, could be anywhere from a half inch up to 6-8 inches. The parts that I'm talking about are about 2 inches in diameter or so. And what I had to do was to come up with an extremely good finish on the bore of this part. And I located a device that was, it's called a burnishing tool. And I read about it, and I said, well, this is going to give me what I want. But I had a lot of resistance with regards to the people in the plant. They said, oh, you can't use that, and it won't work on this machine, and we'll never be able to do it on the screw machine, and this and that, you know. So I started working with some of the plant foremen, and trying to cajole them and get them to come up with, to at least try this idea. And then finally I told them, I said, listen, I'll buy the tooling out of my department budget. You just try it. Well, okay, I don't know, but it's not going to work, and this and that. So I would talk with them every day, and we would try things out, and then all of a sudden, by working with them and getting them involved, they took this project on as their own, and they said, we are going to make this work, you know. And they started coming up with some finishes that were just incredible. I mean, it was, they were almost like mirror finishes. They were almost too good, you know. And every time I would go down there, oh no, we're going to get it better. We're going to do this and this. But the the big point is getting the people involved in the project. And so this was a fairly substantial thing. At the time, I actually ended up selling the idea to Ford Motor Company, and we sold them on the idea. I did a lot of testing with Ford Motor Company, and it brought in like $1 million for the company on this one project, and this was back in 1967, 68 time frame, so which was quite a bit of money at that time. And I told them at one of the banquets that we had for the people, and I said, you know, reminds me of a story, a little anecdote. It's about this truck that gets stuck under a viaduct. It was going down the road and it got stuck, and these engineers are there trying to get it out and pulling it out, and it's not coming out, and there's a young boy that was sitting on the curb over there, you know, and he says, Mister, he says, I know how to get out. He says, oh, yeah. Or he says, yeah, all you have to do is let the air out of the tires and the truck will come down. And sure enough, it come down. And I said, well, and the point of the story is that this person was the closest one to the problem. And so what we did then is the people in the shop were the closest ones to help this project to go by. So after I left Aetna, I went to work for a company called Berg Manufacturing, and I was hired started off to be an engineer, but with my background in manufacturing and quality control, I was hired as the manager of product reliability, and I had all of the quality control department for me, and I worked as liaison between manufacturing and engineering. And at this time, this particular company was having all kinds of quality problems and what have you. And when I went through, I said to myself, this was an ideal kind of a situation where anybody could come in and really kind of look like a hero, because they were literally backwards in many methods of manufacturing and quality control. And one of the biggest things was hiring people. I needed to hire 2 inspectors for the department. And the plant manager told me, he said, you have to hire people on the basis of seniority. It was a very relatively strong union in the company. And I says, I was hired here to strengthen the inspection department. And I says, I have to hire the people that I think that are going to do the job. And he says, no, he says, you got to hire. We've got strict rules with regards to the union. So I said, okay. I says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run a class for the people. I said, anybody who wants to can come to this class. It is going to be after hours on your own time. And I will teach you everything that you need to know to be an inspector. And then I said, I will personally lead this class. I will personally evaluate it. I said, all you have to do is pass the test, and then I will take people on the basis of seniority. And I had been there long enough to realize, who were the strong people in the company and who were the weak people. But again, I needed to follow a very strong procedure. So we ran this class, and unfortunately, it was a lot of minorities in the company. And when I went through the class, I felt really very sorry for them, because many of the basic things, adding and subtracting, they were having problems with, and you needed these kinds of backgrounds to become strong in the inspection department. So we ran the class for about 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, and the people took the class. They really got into it. But a lot of them were very, very limited. And I ended up hiring the people who I thought what I would hire to begin with. And I had absolutely no problems whatsoever with the unions at all. As a matter of fact, the people thanked me for not taking them in the position that as an inspector. They just thought it was a kind of a thing that you sat down at a desk and didn't do anything all day. And so they realized what was involved in the job itself, and they realized that their own limitations, but they also thanked me profusely for helping them out. And one of the biggest compliments I think I got was one of the setup people in the machining department came up to me afterwards, and he said, my wife took the class with you, and I really felt kind of bad because his wife was breaking down in tears a number of times, but when we were done with the class, she gave me a big hug, and she said, "Thank you for not taking me," but he said, "I want to know when you're going to run the class again." He said, "I don't want to become an inspector." He says, I want to learn some of the skills that you were teaching to help me to do my job better." And I thought, oh, this was really probably one of the biggest compliments that I could have been paid at that time. During the course of that year, it was really kind of strange. I don't know why it came about, but there was a big wall in the center of the plant, and I came in the plant one day, and on it it was scrawled in big letters, "I am somebody." And I said, wow. I said, this is really kind of, it really got to me, because these people were, they were just there working. They had no real involvement with the things that they were doing. And these incidents that happened to me really changed the way I looked at people throughout the rest of my career. I think at the time I didn't understand the guiding principle behind this. I didn't feel that there was any real divine intervention. It was just that I thought people should be treated, as humans, and to give them help wherever possible. And later on, as I mellowed through the years, I started looking at this from the standpoint of how my religion had affected my work ethic, and how I approached working with people, and the various ways of get things done. And so that's basically the kind of the approach that I had with regards to my religion in the workplace. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything. I really don't have too much more to say. So, yes?
Did you learn from your experience with working with minorities that they had aspirations that you didn't think they had? Was that part of it? Or?
Repeat the question so that the rest of the audience
I didn't quite. Could you repeat?
My question was, when you were working with these minority union workers, did you discover that they had aspirations you didn't think they had?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was that I didn't see the aspirations there. I think that I saw that they did want to improve themselves, but they just did not have the necessary skills to do it, and what they really needed was somebody to give them a little boost and to help them along the way. Again, it's helped me throughout my career. I'm semi-retired now. I only work part-time, and I've been in manufacturing since the late '60s. So,
Wally, when you decided who had taken the course was going to get this job, did you feel a sense of humility?
At the time I didn't. When I first started set it up, I didn't really know what to expect. It was kind of on touchy grounds. I really never did this kind of thing before, and I think the humility came as I got into the situation deeper. I saw that first of all, I was going to just teach how to use micrometers and veneers and things of this nature, the tools of the trade. But I found I ended up doing a lot of teaching about not mathematics, but simple arithmetic and things of this nature. And at that time, I had a completely different feeling for the people. I didn't understand. Coming from the background that I was, being a degreed engineer, it was beyond me that people of this age had these kind of difficulties. It didn't really dawn on me until I was really faced with it, and then it was a whole different outlook on things. And I had quite a few people that signed up for the class too. I think I had about 10 or 12 people.
Would you say that your empathy for the people who were taking the class grew?
Oh, without a doubt. Not only for the people who were taking the class. I looked at the people who were working in the shop in a different aspect also, and I think that they looked to me different also, because when I first came there, I would try to get them to do certain things to help make the product a little better, and they would fight me. I would have a hard time. And one of the things is a little bit technical, but when we check inside diameters, what they were doing, and these were relatively large diameters, maybe anywhere from 6 to 12 inches, they were checking with plug gauges, and a plug gauge that size can weigh 20 pounds, and it's really difficult, and it's difficult to try to determine if you're making a good part or not. And one of the things I did was I got them right away dial bore gauges, which is it looks like a stick with a V down at the bottom, and there are your indicator points, and it just moves an indicator down. So it's very easy to check it. But when I first got them to gave them the tools to use it with, they were using them like hammers. They were just going to show me that they're not going to do anything the way I want to do it. But then after a while, I would control them, and I would move them in the direction I wanted to go. I say, well, here, just try this. Look at this. See, look how heavy this is, and I ended up coming up with a much better product. As a matter of fact, kind of an interesting thing. We were buying some parts from the outside, and just after I started using these dial bore gauges, we got a bunch of product in from this one company who was very reliable, and they always gave us some good parts. And all of the sizes were oversized. I said, oh my God, that's terrible. I said, they've never done this before. And so I called the guy up right away, and I said, the parts are all oversized. They're too big. He said, I've been making them like that for years. I said, I don't know what you're doing, but they're too big. And he says, how did you check them? I said, dial bore gauges. And he said, He says, just stop right there. He said, when I first started making these parts, I was using dial bore gauges, and your people were rejecting them because they used a plug gauge, and the plug gauges would not fit. So I made the parts bigger so they fit the plug gauge, right? And I says, okay. I says, I'll accept this batch this way, but I says, don't do them anymore. You check them with the dial bore gauges right away. So you know, it was just one thing after another that we started making much better product.